about live after 13 minutes of recording. Yeah, we live. Shit, chat. Shit, chat. Alright. So, right now, chat, we have been watching 4 disturbing unsolved mysteries. I'm intrigued, so lock in. Get that shit. I'm gonna restart it for y'all. I know damn well nobody's watching this shit, so like, maybe. Got the yard some in yard. I don't believe this dude, by the way.
And his steadfast character. His life of service began with his enlistment in the United States Air Force, where he served for 25 years, including a tour in Vietnam. His military career instilled discipline and a sense of purpose that he carried into his civilian life after retiring from active duty. Upon leaving the military, Jack transitioned into civil service, working at Moncrief Army Health Clinic in Columbia's Fort Jackson for another 20 years. His colleagues at Moncrief remembered him as a dedicated worker who took pride in his role within the community. Outside of work, Jack devoted much of his time to volunteering at homeless shelters and soup kitchens throughout Colombia. His efforts to help those in need showcased his generosity and kindness. He was also involved in local politics, working with the Democratic Party to support initiatives aimed at improving the lives of residents in his community. Jack's volunteer work often brought him into contact with people from all walks of life, earning him a reputation as someone who genuinely cared about others. Many believe that this aspect of his life may have played a role in the events leading up to his tragic death. Additionally, Jack was deeply committed to his family, particularly his daughter Tammy Downs and her 2 sons Doug and Matthew. Tammy was Jack's only child, and their bond remained strong throughout his life. Tammy recalls her father as a loving parent who valued spending time with her and her children. Both of Jack's grandsons have fond memories of their grandfather, describing him as a quiet but caring presence in their lives. Jack lived alone in the Wellesley Place apartments on Ranch Road in Columbia's Sandwood neighborhood during the final years of his life. While he preferred solitude at home, he maintained close relationships with his family and a small circle of friends. Those who knew Jack described him as an introverted yet kind-hearted man who found joy in simple pleasures. He had a passion for trains and enjoyed learning about their history and mechanics. Fast forward to August 17, 1996, Jack left his apartment and drove to the Rosewood Boat Landing. This location, along the Congaree River at the far west end of Rosewood Drive, was a quiet and somewhat secluded area frequented by locals for relaxation and picnics. Jack's decision to visit this isolated spot that evening remains one of the enduring mysteries of the case. He did not own a boat or have any known connections to the area, leaving investigators puzzled about what brought him there. At approximately 6 p.m., witnesses at the scene observed Jack arriving in his white 1991 Dodge Dynasty. Shortly after parking, he was seen meeting with a younger Hispanic man. The two appeared to be acquaintances or perhaps even friends based on their interactions. They walked together from the parking lot into a wooded clearing near the boat ramp. Witnesses later reported that their conversation seemed calm at first but quickly escalated into an argument. As the 2 men disappeared from sight into the woods, witnesses overheard bits of their heated exchange. Jack was heard shouting phrases such as, "What is it that you want?" and offering money to his companion. His tone suggested desperation or frustration, as if he were trying to placate the man or resolve some personal dispute. Moments later, a loud scream pierced the air, signaling that something had gone terribly wrong. The witnesses saw the younger man fleeing on foot from the wooded area while Jack stumbled out shortly afterward, clutching his stomach and chest. He had sustained multiple stab wounds and was bleeding profusely. Jack managed to make his way toward the witnesses, pleading for help before collapsing on the ground. His injuries included 3 deep stab wounds to his abdomen and 1 cut to his face, as well as defensive cuts on his hands, indicating that he had fought back against his attacker. Emergency services were called immediately, and paramedics rushed Jack to Palmetto Health Richland Hospital. Despite their efforts to save him, his injuries proved fatal. Within 3 hours of being attacked, he succumbed to a perforated liver caused by one of the stab wounds and significant blood loss. The witnesses described the suspect to police as a Hispanic male with an olive complexion, aged between 25 and 35 years old at the time of the murder. He was approximately 5'5" to 5'10" tall, weighed between 150 to 180 pounds, had black hair and a mustache, and was wearing aviator-style sunglasses. Witnesses also reported overhearing fragments of Jack's argument with the suspect before the altercation turned violent. Jack was heard offering money to his assailant and shouting phrases such as, "What is it that you want?" These statements suggested that money might have been a factor in the confrontation, though investigators later questioned whether it was truly the motive for the attack. The crime scene presented challenges for investigators due to its outdoor location and lack of physical evidence directly linking anyone to the murder. A rusty hunting knife was found near the area during a subsequent search, but forensic testing revealed that it was not connected to Jack's stabbing. Environmental degradation had rendered any potential DNA evidence on the knife unusable. Law enforcement initially focused on establishing whether Jack had planned to meet someone at Rosewood Boat Landing or if his encounter with the suspect was purely coincidental. Investigators scoured Jack's phone records and financial statements, but found no indications that he had made arrangements for a meeting or transaction at this location. His daughter Tammy confirmed that her father was not known to frequent this area and had no apparent reason for being there. This lack of premeditated plans led investigators to consider two possibilities. Either Jack had been lured there under false pretenses, or he had encountered someone he knew casually by chance. Witnesses believed that Jack and the suspect were acquaintances based on their interactions before entering the wooded area. About a year after Jack's murder, investigators explored potential connections between his case and another double homicide involving Kimberly Brown, a former colleague of Jack, and her 3-year-old niece Leah Brazil. Their bodies were discovered near another boat ramp off Highway 601 in South Carolina. Bloodhounds used during Jack's investigation tracked a scent from Rosewood Boat Landing to a business later associated with Max Noten, who confessed to Kimberly's murder. Initially, detectives believed Max might also be responsible for Jack's death due to circumstantial evidence linking him to both locations. However, significant discrepancies emerged, such as the fact that Max was African American while the suspect in Jack's case was described as Hispanic. Furthermore, Kimberly's body was dumped post-mortem while Jack was killed on site and left at the scene. Ultimately, prosecutors did not pursue charges against Max for Jack's murder due to insufficient evidence. They informed Jack's family that while they believed Max might be involved, they could not proceed without physical evidence tying him directly to the crime. While theories are rampant, from personal vendettas to chance encounters, the truth remains elusive after about 3 decades. The Florence Salon murders, a brutal triple homicide that occurred on November 6, 2001 in the small town of Florence, Montana, remain one of the most perplexing and chilling unsolved cases in the state's history. The victims, Dorothy Harris, Brenda Patch, and Cynthia Paulus, were found murdered inside the Hair Gallery, a small salon located along Highway 93. Despite decades of investigation, the case remains unresolved. On that fateful Tuesday morning, a customer arrived at the Hair Gallery for her scheduled manicure appointment. As she parked her car, she noticed a man walking away from the salon. Witnesses later described this man as thin and unusually dressed, wearing a long dark trench coat or duster jacket and a wide-brimmed black hat resembling either a fedora or a top hat. His strange appearance caught the attention of several people in the area, but no one could have anticipated the man awaiting inside the salon. The customer entered through the back door,
there's blood over there.
Patrons of the business, and was immediately confronted with a gruesome scene. Lying face down in a pool of blood near the entryway was Dorothy Harris, the salon's owner. Her body was curled into a fetal position, and her throat had been deeply slashed. Horrified but determined to call for help, the customer stepped over her body to reach the nearby telephone and dialed authorities. She then retreated from the building to wait for them to arrive. When law enforcement officers entered the salon to investigate further, they discovered 2 more bodies in a small utility room at the back of the establishment. These victims were identified as Brenda Patch, a manicurist employed at the Hair Gallery, and Cynthia Paulus, a regular customer who had come in for her weekly manicure. Like Harris, both women had suffered fatal injuries to their throats, with deep incisions that left investigators stunned by the sheer violence of the attack.
Bruh.
Investigators pieced together a tentative timeline based on witness accounts and evidence at the scene. It is believed that Brenda and Cynthia were alone in the salon when the attacker arrived. The assailant likely forced them into the cramped utility room where they were made to kneel before being killed. The room itself bore signs of struggle. Police later described it as a battle scene, with blood spattered across its walls. Minutes after Brenda and Cynthia were murdered, Dorothy returned to the salon. She had visited a nearby bank earlier that morning to make her routine deposit and likely entered through the back door upon her return. Tragically, she encountered the killer almost immediately upon entering and was murdered in the doorway. Her injuries mirrored those of Brenda and Cynthia, but investigators noted additional undisclosed injuries on all three victims. Importantly, there was no evidence of sexual assault on any of the victims, a detail that ruled out certain motives but deepened the mystery surrounding this violent act. One of the most baffling aspects of this case is its apparent lack of motive. Nothing valuable appeared to have been stolen from the business. Only 2 inexpensive plastic hairdressing capes were reported missing. This absence of theft or sexual assault left detectives struggling to understand why someone would commit such an extraordinarily violent crime against 3 seemingly ordinary women. As for that previously mentioned man in the long coat, 7 witnesses reported seeing him loitering around Highway 93 near the hair gallery in the hours leading up to and immediately following the murders. Some described him as walking calmly away from the salon after the killings, while others noted that he appeared to be wandering aimlessly in nearby areas. One witness specifically saw him heading toward the woods after leaving the vicinity of the salon. Despite his conspicuous appearance and behavior, authorities were never able to identify him or determine his role in the crime. The sequence of events leading up to the murders is tightly constrained by time. Dorothy had been seen at a nearby bank at approximately 10:30 a.m. It typically took her around 20 minutes to drive back to the hair gallery, placing her arrival at roughly 10:50 a.m. Investigators theorized that Brenda and Cynthia were already inside when Dorothy returned to the salon. Brenda had opened the hair gallery earlier that morning and was giving Cynthia her manicure appointment when the killer entered. The chain of events means that all 3 women were killed within a window of approximately 20 to 30 minutes as the bodies were discovered around 11 a.m. Investigators recovered several pieces of evidence from the business that could potentially identify the perpetrator. Among these were an unidentified palm print found inside the salon and a pair of dark sunglasses that did not belong to any of the victims. These items were carefully analyzed but ultimately failed to provide conclusive leads. As weeks turned into months without significant progress, investigators began exploring theories involving drug-related motives. By 2005, attention turned to Brian Weber and Lincoln Benavides, 2 men with extensive criminal histories tied to substance trafficking in western Montana. Brian was a small-time dealer with a history of violent crimes, while Lincoln was alleged to be the leader of a meth ring operating across Montana and Idaho. Prosecutors hypothesized that Lincoln had ordered Brian to carry out the murders as part of a substance-related retaliation against someone connected to one of the victims. Court documents suggested that an unpaid debt may have been at the center of this theory. Some investigators believe that one of the women or someone close to them had run afoul of Lincoln by mishandling or owing money tied to his operations. Brian's DNA was also found inside the hair gallery, which raised suspicions about his involvement. When questioned by authorities about why his DNA was present at the crime scene, Brian claimed he had not been inside the building since it had operated as a post office years earlier, a statement investigators found dubious. Brian also allowed police to search his van, but maintained his innocence regarding any involvement in the murders. Despite these leads, evidence linking Brian and Lincoln directly to the murders remained circumstantial at best. Much of the prosecution's case relied on testimony from prison informants who claimed that Brian
this was in like 1990 something.
However, these statements were deemed unreliable under scrutiny, as informants often provide information
a classic Chevy
Capri
or other
for
benefits. A cop car.
In 2008,
you saying these
motherfuckers
are the motherfuckers
related to murder while engaged in substance trafficking. Prosecutors argued that Lincoln orchestrated the killings and that
Hell
Bryan
no.
acted as
You
his
capping.
enforcer. If convicted, both men faced potential sentences of death or life imprisonment. However, federal prosecutors ultimately dropped all charges against Bryan and Lincoln due to insufficient evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Lincoln later accepted a plea deal on unrelated federal charges and is currently serving a 25-year sentence set to end in 2030. Similarly, Bryan remains incarcerated for separate amphetamine convictions and is scheduled for release in 2029. While some investigators supported the theory that illegal substances played a role in motivating the murders, others believe that one of the three women may have been specifically targeted for unrelated reasons. This line of thinking stemmed from behavioral profiling and analysis of how events unfolded at the salon. Cynthia's presence at the salon on November 6th was unusual. She typically scheduled her appointments for Friday mornings, but had rescheduled for that Tuesday morning due to an event she planned to attend later that evening. Some investigators speculated that her unexpected appearance might have disrupted plans, targeting another individual, or made her an unintended victim. Others theorized that Dorothy's role as a business owner might have made her more visible within the small community, and therefore more likely to attract unwanted attention. However, her routine bank visit earlier that morning suggested she was not present when Brenda and Cynthia were initially attacked in the utility room at the back of the salon. This timeline made it less likely that Dorothy was the intended target unless her arrival coincided with an opportunistic moment for the killer. Brenda's connection to local residents through her work as a manicurist also raised questions about whether she might have been targeted due to personal disputes or associations unknown to investigators. However, no concrete evidence emerged linking Brenda or any other victim to conflicts significant enough to warrant such extreme violence. Despite decades of investigation, this case remains unsolved more than 20 years later.
Move my shit up a little bit closer.
Amy Lynn Bradley was born on May 12, 1974 in Petersburg, Virginia, and grew up in Chesterfield County with her parents, Ron and Iva Bradley, and her younger brother, Brad. From an early age, Amy demonstrated a vibrant personality and a strong sense of compassion. Her family and friends described her as outgoing, confident, and someone who always made people feel included. She was particularly known for her kindness, such as inviting strangers to join her family at dinner or befriending individuals with disabilities at her local karaoke club. These qualities made Amy a beloved figure among those who knew her. Her athleticism was another defining feature of her life. In high school, she excelled in sports, lettering in 5 varsity teams alongside her brother. Basketball was her favorite sport, and she earned a scholarship to attend Longwood University in Virginia. At Longwood, Amy continued to shine both academically and athletically. She played on the basketball team, joined the swim team as an assistant captain, and worked toward a degree in physical education. Her strong swimming abilities also led her to work as a lifeguard, a skill that would later be highlighted in discussions about her disappearance. In 1996, she graduated from Longwood University with plans for a bright future. Her parents gifted her an English bulldog named Bailey as a graduation present, which she adored. Amy moved into an apartment in Chesterfield shortly after graduation and began working at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse while preparing for the next chapter of her life. She had big dreams, pursuing a master's degree in sports psychology. She was also excited about starting a full-time marketing assistant position at her aunt's computer consulting firm. By 1998, Amy was thriving personally and professionally. She had concert tickets lined up for when she returned from vacation, had adopted another bulldog named Daisy to accompany Bailey, and had even bought gifts for friends during the trip. Her brother Brad recalled that this period was one of the happiest times of Amy's life. She was excited about the future and eagerly preparing for new opportunities. The Bradley family's ill-fated Caribbean cruise began as a celebration of Ron Bradley's achievement at work. He had won an annual sales contest through his employer, Illinois Mutual Life Insurance Company, which included an expenses paid week-long cruise aboard Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas. Ron and his wife decided to extend the celebration by inviting their children to join them on the trip, covering their airfare and cruise tickets. The cruise itinerary included stops in San Juan, Aruba, Curacao, St. Martin, St. St. Thomas, and finally returning to Puerto Rico. The family boarded the ship on March 21st, 1998, expecting a relaxing vacation filled with sightseeing and quality time together. Initially hesitant about the trip due to her unease with open water, despite being a strong swimmer, Amy eventually agreed to join her family after some encouragement.
I got a job now,
As the departure date approached, her apprehension turned into excitement. She dyed her hair from bleach blonde to brown, got her nails done, and spent 3 weeks tanning in preparation for the cruise. On March 21st, Amy and Brad flew from Richmond International Airport to San Juan via Miami while their parents took an earlier flight. Upon arriving in San Juan, the siblings met up with their parents before boarding Rhapsody of the Seas.
I just bought this mic though, like literally
Amy wrote postcards to friends back home expressing excitement about the trip and purchased rolls of film for a photo contest she planned to enter upon returning home. The ship itself was capable of holding well over 2,000 passengers and 765 crew members across 11 decks, weighing 75,000 tons and stretching nearly 1,000 feet long with over 100 feet in width. It offered amenities such as pools, nightclubs, restaurants, casinos, and more. The first few days of the cruise were filled with relaxation and fun for the Bradleys. They explored Aruba on March 23rd by renting a jeep to tour the island before returning to the ship for dinner dressed in formal attire. That evening marked one of the last times they were all together as a family before tragedy struck. After dinner on March 23rd, Amy and Brad decided to visit the ship's casino before heading to its nightclub, the Viking Lounge, for Mardi Gras-themed festivities hosted by Blue Orchid, the ship's band. A videographer named Chris Fenwick captured footage of Amy dancing with Alistair Yellow Douglas, the band's bass player, during this event. Amy interacted extensively with Yellow throughout the night, but reportedly found him unpleasant. She told Brad he was, quote, a real jerk. Witnesses later claimed Yellow had been flirting persistently with Amy during their interactions. Brad eventually returned to their cabin around 3:35 a.m., followed by Amy 5 minutes later, according to electronic door lock records. The siblings smoked cigarettes together on their balcony while chatting about plans for Curacao before Brad went to bed around 3:50 a.m., leaving Amy outside for fresh air due to mild motion sickness. At approximately 5:30 a.m., Ron woke up briefly and saw Amy asleep on the balcony lounge chair before returning to bed himself. When he woke again around 6, he found that she was gone. The balcony door was partially open but empty except for her shirt left behind on a chair inside the room. Her cigarettes and lighter were missing. However, all of her shoes remained in the cabin, a detail indicating she had left barefoot. Alarmed but hopeful that his daughter might be taking pictures or enjoying fresh air elsewhere on deck given the docking procedures underway at that time, Ron began searching for Amy across common areas on board but found no trace of her. He woke his family at around 6:30 to assist in the search. Afterward, they alerted the crew and requested an announcement over the ship's intercom system to prevent passengers from disembarking at their next stop. Unfortunately, staff delayed making an announcement until 7:50 a.m., by which time many passengers had already left the ship. The announcement itself was brief and vague. It said something to the extent of, "Will Amy Bradley please come to the purser's desk?" This delay significantly reduced the chances of locating Amy quickly and raised questions about whether proper protocols were followed. Between 12:15 p.m. and 1 p.m., cruise staff conducted a search of all the decks, including all rooms aboard Rhapsody of the Seas. Despite combing through every area accessible to passengers and crew, they found no trace of Amy. The Bradleys were devastated by what they perceived as a lack of urgency and cooperation from Royal Caribbean staff during these critical early hours. Following Amy's disappearance, authorities launched extensive search operations both at sea and on land in Curacao. The Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard conducted a 4-day aerial and sea search that ended on March 27, 1998. This operation involved 3 helicopters and a radar-equipped plane scanning surrounding waters for any sign of Amy or evidence suggesting she had fallen overboard. Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines also chartered additional boats to assist in these efforts.
Look at those
Despite these exhaustive measures, no evidence of Amy's whereabouts was found in the ocean or along nearby coastlines. Authorities initially speculated that she might have fallen overboard or jumped intentionally, a theory her family vehemently disputed due to her strong swimming skills, excitement about future plans, and lack of any prior indication of tendencies. The Bradleys believed that if Amy had left the ship voluntarily or been abducted, she might still be somewhere in Curacao. However, searches on land faced significant obstacles due to limited jurisdictional authority for US-based investigators like the FBI. Local police in Curacao were involved but lacked leads or evidence pointing toward Amy's presence on shore. Witness reports from Curacao later emerged suggesting possible sightings of Amy shortly after her disappearance. A taxi driver claimed he saw a woman matching her description frantically searching for a phone near the port on March 24th. The same day, passengers disembarked from Rhapsody of the Seas. However, this account could not be verified, and subsequent searches yielded no further clues. Frustrated by what they perceived as insufficient action from Royal Caribbean and local authorities, the Bradley family took matters into their own hands. They distributed flyers with Amy's photograph across Curacao and neighboring islands, while offering substantial rewards for information leading to her recovery. Their efforts garnered widespread attention but failed to produce actionable leads. The family also criticized Royal Caribbean for prioritizing its reputation over finding their daughter. They believed that delays in announcing Amy's disappearance and allowing passengers to disembark without thorough checks were motivated by concerns about negative publicity rather than genuine concern for her safety. One of the most widely accepted theories is that Amy was abducted and sold into human trafficking. This theory is supported by multiple witness accounts and circumstantial evidence that emerged in the years following her disappearance. Shortly after Amy vanished, her family received reports of possible sightings in Curacao. In August 1998, 5 months after she disappeared, 2 Canadian tourists claimed to have seen a woman resembling Amy on a beach in the same area. The woman reportedly had tattoos identical to Amy's, specifically a Tasmanian devil spinning a basketball on her shoulder and a lizard on her navel. The tourists did not realize she was a missing person until they saw her case on television later. In January 1999, a U.S. Navy petty officer reported seeing a woman in a brothel in Curacao who identified herself as Amy Lynn Bradley. According to the officer, the woman begged for help and explained that she was being held against her will. However, he did not report the incident at the time due to fears about his career being jeopardized for visiting a brothel. He only contacted Amy's family after retiring from the Navy and seeing her photo in a magazine. Years later, in 2005, Amy's parents received an email containing photographs of a sex worker known as Jazz who bore a striking resemblance to Amy. Experts noted that the woman appeared distressed and withdrawn. The photos were discovered by an organization that monitors adult websites for victims of trafficking. Although the images provided hope that Amy might still be alive, investigators were unable to trace their origin or confirm whether they depicted her. Another sighting occurred in Barbados when Judy Maurer claimed she saw Amy in a department store restroom in 2005. Maurer reported that Amy was accompanied by 3 men who threatened her before leaving the restroom. After they left, Maurer approached the woman who identified herself as Amy from Virginia. However, before Maurer could help further, the men returned and forcibly removed Amy from the store. These accounts paint a chilling picture of what might have happened to Amy after she disappeared. Her family believes she was targeted because of her appearance and outgoing personality, qualities that might make her a quote trophy in human trafficking circles. Despite these credible sightings, no concrete evidence has ever been found to confirm this theory. Another theory suggests that Amy may have been harmed by someone aboard Rhapsody of the Seas. Suspicious behavior by crew members and passengers has fueled speculation about foul play. Alistair "Yellow" Douglas, the bass player from the ship's band who danced with Amy at the nightclub on March 23rd, has been scrutinized for his actions before and after her disappearance. Witnesses claim they saw Douglas with Amy on the upper deck between 5:30 and 5:45 a.m., handing her a drink before they entered an elevator together. Douglas was later seen alone on deck after Amy went missing, raising questions about his involvement. Adding to suspicions is Douglas's alleged comment to Brad Bradley, the victim's brother, later that day. According to Brad, Douglas expressed regret about what had happened to his sister before news of her disappearance had been made public aboard the ship. This peculiar statement has led many to believe Douglas knew more than he admitted. Another crew member, a waiter, had reportedly shown unusual interest in Amy during the trip. He persistently invited her to go ashore with him at Curacao despite her refusals. This behavior raised concerns about whether he might have played a role in her disappearance. Further complicating matters are missing photographs from the ship's gallery. Professional photographers aboard cruise ships often display pictures taken during events for passengers to purchase. However, none of Amy's photos could be found after she disappeared. Her family suspects someone intentionally removed them to erase evidence of her presence or interactions with others on board. Some theorists speculate that if foul play occurred on board, Amy may have been murdered and thrown overboard to conceal the crime. However, no physical evidence such as blood or DNA has ever been recovered from Rhapsody of the Seas to support this theory. Initially, authorities proposed that Amy may have fallen overboard accidentally or died by suicide, a theory dismissed by both investigators and her family due to lack of supporting evidence. Amy was known for her strong swimming skills and had no history of mental health issues or suicidal tendencies. She was excited about returning home to start a new job, move into her apartment, and care for her bulldog Daisy, all signs pointing toward future plans rather than despair. The possibility of an accidental fall has also been questioned due to logistical inconsistencies. If Amy fell overboard from her cabin balcony or another part of the ship, it is unlikely she would have gone unnoticed given how quickly Ron Bradley began searching for her after discovering she was missing at 6 a.m. Furthermore, extensive searches conducted by the Netherlands Antilles Coast Guard yielded no trace of her body in surrounding waters. Some theorists suggest that alcohol consumption during the party may have impaired Amy's judgment or coordination, leading to an accidental fall while leaning over railings or navigating decks late at night. However, this theory remains speculative without evidence confirming such an event occurred.
Shut the fuck up. Who the fuck is this guy?
Ray Gricar was born on October 9th, 1945 in Cleveland, Ohio, and grew up in the city's Collinwood neighborhood. He attended high school at Gilmore Academy, a prestigious Catholic institution in Gates Mills, Ohio. From an early age, Ray displayed a strong intellect and a disciplined work ethic. After graduating from high school, he enrolled at the University of Dayton, where he developed an interest in law while working as an intern for the prosecutor's office. This experience cemented his decision to pursue a legal career, and after earning his undergraduate degree, he returned to Cleveland to study law at Case Western Reserve University School of Law. He obtained his Juris Doctor and soon embarked on his legal career. Ray began his professional journey as a prosecutor in Cuyahoga County, Ohio, where he specialized in prosecuting cases involving rape and murder. Defense attorneys prepared their clients for intense cross-examinations when facing Ray in court. His ability to craft succinct arguments and his unwavering focus on justice distinguished him as a formidable figure in the legal community. Among the notable cases he handled during this time was the prosecution of several high-profile murder cases that showcased his ability to piece together complex evidence and secure convictions. In 1979, Ray's life took a significant turn when his first wife, Barbara Gray, was hired as a professor at Pennsylvania State University. The couple relocated to State College, Pennsylvania, along with their adopted daughter, Laura. During this period, Ray chose to step away from his legal career temporarily to become a stay-at-home father for his child. This decision reflected his deep commitment to family and his belief in prioritizing personal responsibilities over professional ambitions. After spending more than a year as a stay-at-home dad, Ray returned to the legal field when Centre County District Attorney David Grine offered him an assistant position. Ray accepted the role and quickly made an impression with his dedication and skill. In 1985, when incumbent District Attorney Robert Mix decided not to run for re-election, Ray seized the opportunity to campaign for the position. Running against Amos Goodall, a fellow attorney who had become a close friend, Ray won the election by a narrow margin of 600 votes. Upon taking office as Centre County's district attorney, Ray faced unique challenges. At the time, the position was part-time, but he successfully campaigned to make it full-time by 1996. His tenure as district attorney spanned 2 decades, during which he was re-elected 4 times, solidifying his status as a trusted public servant in the community. Ray's career was marked by several high-profile cases that demonstrated his commitment to justice and his ability to navigate complex legal scenarios. One such case involved the 1993 murder of Dawn Marie Birnbaum, a 17-year-old runaway whose body was discovered in a snowbank off Interstate 80. Using circumstantial evidence such as DNA analysis, tire tracks, and gas receipts, Ray successfully linked the crime to a cross-country truck driver who had dumped Birnbaum's body in Centre County. a critical mistake that allowed Ray jurisdiction over the case. Despite the challenges posed by relying heavily on circumstantial evidence, Ray's attention to detail ensured that justice was served. Perhaps one of the most controversial decisions of his career came in 1998 when he declined to prosecute Penn State assistant football coach Jerry Sandusky following allegations of child sexual abuse. The allegations involved Jerry showering with an 11-year-old boy and engaging in inappropriate conduct, a claim supported by witness testimony from law enforcement officers who overheard Sandusky admitting to showering with young boys. Despite this evidence and pressure from some quarters to pursue charges against Jerry, Ray ultimately decided not to proceed with criminal charges. While some speculated that this decision was influenced by Jerry's status as a hometown icon or political considerations tied to Penn State's influence in Central County, those close to Ray refuted such claims. They described him as fiercely independent and unbowed by external pressures or public opinion. Anthony DeBoeuf, who worked under Ray as an assistant district attorney for 5 years, emphasized that, quote, no one got a bye with Ray. He insisted that the decision not to prosecute Jerry stemmed from insufficient evidence rather than favoritism or reluctance to challenge powerful figures. Similarly, Robert Buhner Jr., Montour County's district attorney and one of Ray's closest friends, defended this choice by noting that Ray would never pursue charges unless he believed there was a reasonable likelihood of conviction. Despite these assurances from colleagues and friends about his integrity and independence as a prosecutor, Jerry's eventual conviction on multiple counts of sexual abuse in 2011 reignited scrutiny over Ray's handling of the initial allegations. This controversy added another layer of complexity to discussions about his legacy following his disappearance. On the morning of April 15, 2005, Ray decided to take a day off from work as Center County's district attorney. He informed his girlfriend, Patty Fornicola, that he planned to enjoy the warm spring weather by taking a drive through Brush Valley along Route 192. Around 11:30 a.m., Ray called Patty on his cell phone to let her know he was driving east-northeast toward Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, a town roughly 45 miles from his home in Bellefonte. During the call, he sounded calm and cheerful, ending the conversation with, "I love you." This was the last confirmed interaction anyone had with him. Patty returned home after work and noticed Ray wasn't back yet. Initially unconcerned, she went to the gym but began to worry when she returned home later that evening and still found no sign of him. After several hours of unanswered phone calls, his cell phone went straight to voicemail. Patty contacted authorities at approximately 11:30 p.m. to report him missing. She described his behavior as highly unusual and emphasized that Ray was not someone who would disappear without notifying her. The following day, investigators located Ray's distinctive red Mini Cooper parked in a dirt lot near the Street of Shops Antique Mall in Lewisburg. The vehicle was locked and inside were puzzling clues. Ray's cell phone was found turned off and locked in the car, along with a water bottle bearing his DNA. However, his wallet, car keys, laptop computer, and sunglasses were missing. Forensic technicians noted cigarette ashes on the passenger side floor mat and detected a strong smell of tobacco inside the car, details that raised suspicions because Ray was a staunch non-smoker who disliked cigarette smoke. Investigators also found cigarette butts on the ground near the car, but were unable to extract any useful DNA evidence from them. Witness accounts added further intrigue to the case. Several individuals reported seeing Ray at the antique mall earlier that day, including one witness.
This one.
Douglas Daniel Clark was born on March 10, 1948 in Pennsylvania as the third of 5 children. His father, Franklin, was a Navy lieutenant commander working in naval intelligence, and the family's life centered almost entirely around his career, which meant constant relocation and disruption. In the 3rd grade, Doug decided he no longer wanted to go by his given name and insisted on being called Doug instead. While seemingly a small adjustment, many looked to this event as an early sign of his assertive and controlling personality that would define him throughout his life. During his early years, the family moved from Pennsylvania to Seattle to Berkeley to Japan. In 1958, when Doug was 10 years old, his father retired from the Navy and took on a career as an engineer with the transport company of Texas. Retirement, however, did not slow the family's movements. In 1959, the entire entire
I'm
Clark
gonna end the
family
stream
of 7
here, and then when I
relocated
wake
to
up, cause
Kwajalein,
like
a
I want to
remote
start the
atoll
stream
in
up
the Marshall
again.
Islands in the
So
Central Pacific,
I'll let
where
y'all know
Franklin
what.
ran the supply department for his
I'll let
employer.
y'all know
The
what's
Clarks
going
lived
on.
in a housing estate built
Alright.
specifically
I
for the
fucked with
American
y'all.
families who
I'll
worked
see
in
you
the
again.
area.
Have a
Other
good day.
Americans living nearby
Sleep,
later
bro. Matter
described
of
the
fact,
Clarks
it's
as
3
pleasant
a.m. in the
people who
fucking
kept to
night.
themselves.
Yeah,
After
3 a.m.
approximately 2
in the
years on the
morning.
island, the family returned briefly
Go
to
sleep.
Berkeley